Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Digimon Adventure 2020 Episode 7. So yeah, last we left off, we met Mimi. Mimi is pretty much the same as I remember. Though to be fair, I don't remember like a huge amount. I want to reiterate this. It's been a long ass time since I've seen the original Digimon Adventure or Adventure 2 or anything in this continuity really. Even the Try movies that I had seen, it's still been a while. The point is, I haven't seen especially the original Digimon Adventure in a long time. And so there's a lot I don't remember, a lot that I have to kind of get myself reacclimated with. Um, but I do still hold a very special place in my heart for it all. So going into this, of course, the nostalgia, everything sweeps over as always. Um, but I have to try and remember certain aspects of it still. From what I remember, though, this is pretty much still how Mimi was. Um, and I was actually reminded of something else about her, though, in the comments about her unfortunate, unfortunate acclivity to being attacked by slimes or Numemon. I believe it's Numemon. But either way, yeah, that was a thing in the original. From what I remember, Mimi was not what I would necessarily call the prissy one of the group originally. Um, like I had said before, she could hold her own. She could still be a good fighter. She had that fire in her, but she wasn't the most brave. Let's put it that way. She wasn't the bravest. She wasn't the most outgoing in terms of the action and everything. She was definitely not in her wheelhouse with it all. But she is willing to do what she can. And I'm hoping we see more of that, and I'm hoping we get to see more of that fire in her that she should have, that I remember her having. Anyway, so we only have a couple more Digidestined or Chosen Ones, whatever you want to refer to them as, to go. Now, I had said that I was thinking Joe was going to be last because it just felt like he would be the later one to come in. But I also said that if they're trying to work their way to getting to Patamon or Angemon, TK basically, then they might end up trying to save him for last, which would bring back in Matt as well and everything. So all we have left is TK, Kari, and Joe. So Kari probably isn't going to come in yet. Even if they do bring her in early, I don't think it's going to be this early. And I'm counting early as in compared to compared to the original series. Um, yeah, I'm thinking that it might actually end up being Joe next. Just because, again, they're supposed to be heading uh, to the sea to cross it to the other continent in order to find the Holy Digimon, who it has to be Angemon that it's talking about, or I guess the Angemon line in general. which would be, again, TK. So it's like, if TK's on the other continent, it's like, then yeah, unless we're going to have some episodes without any new Digidestin being introduced, Joe would be next. Now, Joe is another one of those who just hasn't been shown at all up to this point. Um, because like Mimi wasn't shown at all before her debut, outside of like the little hint the episode before, um, and everything. But like you saw Sora before she came into the digital world and stuff. Like Izzy and Ty were obviously there, and so on and so forth. It's like you got to see them beforehand. But Joe, it's like outside of a very, very brief glimpse you got at every single one of the Digidestined, um, most of which were in shadow. You didn't really get to meet him at all. So yeah. Now, Joe, from what I remember in the original, was kind of more than was the more neurotic one. He definitely uh was, I guess you could call him a planner more than a fighter. He's Joe was always the smart kid. He was the one who would constantly study in school and like work his ass off to be the best student he could be. But at the same time, he was, I believe, more strategic than the rest of the group. That he actually thought things through, but at the same time, he also like was the because of being the more logical minded one, really kind of didn't know how to handle something that was illogical, such as the digital world. This often caused him to come across as very neurotic and just, I don't want to say he was unlikable, but growing up, he was my least favorite of the Digidestined. He just, I never connected to him as much, and I always found him a little too uptight. And maybe it's because of the fact that that's just not how I was in school. I was never the big studious type. I was never like the one who would constantly be studying and getting the best grades and shit. It's like I was never like that because and I like couldn't get like that even when I did try, because it's like my autism kept fucking with me in that regard. I didn't do that great in school, let's put it that way. Um but yeah, so I don't know how I'm going to connect with Joe in this version at this time. It's definitely going to be a different experience, but I don't know exactly what I'm going to think of his character at this point. We're going to kind of have to see. But I'm very much enjoying what we've gotten so far. And even if I don't like him as much as the others, I'll still probably like him, just to a lesser degree. We've already got our villain introduced. We've got sort of introduced Devimon. Um, and we got our goals, so it's like it's going to be interesting to see where this goes at this point, especially just in comparison to the original series. Um, Now, if I were to give a guess, if we're going to get Joe this episode, then next episode we're going to, or either at the end of this episode or during next episode, we're going to get to the other continent, and we're going to get to TK. And then Kari probably won't come in, my guess, until after Devimon. That would make the most sense to me. Have the original core Digidestined or Chosen Ones to take on Devimon, and then Kari comes in afterwards. I don't remember exactly when she came in the original, but this would be what I feel would make the most sense. Now, if they bring her in before that, I'm all well and good with that. I am all good with that. But that just kind of comes across as making the most sense to me at the moment. So, this is going to be interesting going forward, though. And this is all based on the idea, if I'm right, too, mind you, if I'm right about it being Joe next. I would kind of not mind it, though, because while Joe was never my favorite Digidestined, I always loved Gomamon. Gomamon is super freaking cute. And on top of that, I've just always loved its design. It's like this cute little seal thing, and it's like I just love that. And I'm not as big a fan of its Digivolutions. I think the first one is Ikakumon, which is the champion level. I know what the ultimate level is. I just can't think of its name for the life of me. It kind of has like this sea lion, kind of sea lion, I guess you could say. Like it has like the shell and the big hammer thing. Stands on two legs, unlike its previous forms, which are quadrupedal. Um, I know what it is. I just can't think of its name for the life of me. Um, but yeah, I've always enjoyed Gomamon's design, and I'm really interested to see Gomamon again because, in terms of personality, I don't remember too much of Gomamon's personality either. Like I remember a lot of the others. It's just, again, it's maybe because I didn't connect with Joe as much that even Gomamon's personality just didn't stick with me as hard as it could have. I do think Gomamon balanced Joe out. What I don't think Gomamon was like as neurotic as Joe. And sorry for the lighting issues. I really wish that that would stop happening. Shit like that. Um, but yeah, I think he balanced Joe out, but I'm not 100% on that. Also, Ogremon. One last thing before we get this going. Ogremon almost looks like he's been at his wit's end. So I'm starting to think Ogremon isn't under control of Devimon's Soundbirdmon. I think Ogremon is maybe being forced to do this, or maybe not necessarily being forced, but coerced into doing it. So one of those two, something like that. And that he's maybe going to rebel, and Devimon's going to have to control him at this point. Now, I'm also still wondering if the Black Gears are going to come in, or if the Soundbirdmon are just completely taking over for that, because that would almost be a little disappointing. The Soundbirdmon just aren't as interesting to me as the Black Gears. Like, the Soundbirdmon, it's just, okay, it's another Digimon that's going around that can brainwash other Digimon. Woo. Creepy and weird, but woo. Oh boy. Um, but the Black Gears, these mind controlling devices created by Devimon that lodge themselves deep inside of the bodies of other Digimon to control them, turn them into rampaging, villainous monsters whose only goal is to attack and hurt and go after the Digidestin. It's like that's a lot more interesting. So yeah, I would like to see what they can do with that if they do bring that in, because that I think is just a better concept than the Soundbirdmon, personally. But again, I kind of gave a theory about that before, about maybe the Soundbirdmon kind of being the predecessor to the Black Gears, and Devimon somehow utilizing the Soundbirdmon's ability to mind control to create the Black Gears. It's a possibility. Um, but either way, um, we're just gonna get this started. I've been talking long enough regarding just pre thoughts and all. So, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. Okay, and we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, so before anything, I want to get this off my chest because I was talking about it in the reaction briefly, but yeah. So I don't know how it is everywhere. And I don't fully know how it is in Japan. I only know from what I've heard, from what I've seen in various shows and anime, and yada yada. But I know how it is here in America. And schooling here in America is shit. I would suggest watching a video, if you haven't already, called Don't Stay in School by Boy in a Band. Boy in a Band, all one word, by the way. It's a great video that explains how the school system here in America is kind of fucked up and doesn't teach you what you actually need to know in order to basically survive after high school. It teaches you completely unimportant random bullshit that really most people are never going to utilize in their lives. Like, for example, you'll learn all of these like complex math equations and shit. You'll learn how Henry VIII killed his wives, but you won't learn important stuff like how to do taxes. You won't learn how money works. You won't learn how to apply for jobs. That kind of stuff is not deemed important in American schooling. Not like stuff like maths and sciences and histories. And all of that stuff is important to a degree. All of that stuff is important to a degree. But you don't need to know the structure of a cell over how to survive, how to live, how to do things that are actually important. And it's like the American schooling system is so heavy on the idea that it's so important, even though it's proven to not be, at least not the way it is. It's so forceful on that it stresses so many kids out. It gives them a lot of times inferiority complexes and makes them feel like they're not good enough, makes them feel like because they don't understand a lot of this stuff that, once again, they're never going to use for the most part, they feel stupid or inadequate. They gain these confidence issues that stay with them their entire lives. And for kids who have learning disabilities and shit, stuff like autism or whatnot, and various other mental disorders and all, for kids like that, it's even worse. Because they're told shit like, oh, they're not studying hard enough, or they're just not trying, when in reality, they literally can't grasp it as easily or as well because they have a mental disorder. And yes, I'm kind of ranting in regards to my own experiences with that. But either way, I know in Japan that schooling is seen as, in a lot of ways, more important. Now, I don't know all the kind of stuff they teach in Japan. I don't. But I do know that in Japan, like school breaks, like summer holiday and stuff, that kind of stuff, is a lot shorter. School breaks are a lot shorter, a lot less often. I do know that students are made to take a more active role in the school, including doing stuff like cleaning the classrooms and all, um, and various things like that. And I do know that schooling is also treated as important to the point where it's like you see these characters, like Joe in various shows and stuff, who are so studious, who are so like, I have to do this in order to make a life of myself. From what I've seen in, again, various anime and various other places around, that's pretty much what it's like, because schooling is taken so seriously that, I mean, you have to take entrance exams just to get into a high school in Japan. And it's like, that's ridiculous, to be completely honest. But even beyond that, it basically shapes your entire life there. And it shapes how people see you. And it's ridiculous. Schooling is important. I won't argue that. I'm not here to tell you that you should not go to school, that it's not important to learn this kind of stuff. I'm never going to tell you that. But there's a problem when schools focus on teaching the wrong things and their students just end up ill prepared for the real world. And I just feel like it's just not helping. It's not helping. Like I said, go watch the video by Boy in a Band. Once again, it's called "Don't Stay in School," and it's not, again, it's not necessarily trying to tell you to literally like just stop going to school. Just watch the video; it explains everything um, on how the schooling system, at least here, is kind of fucked up. Anywho, anywho, um, moving on from that though. So Joe clearly here, well, I mean, kind of connecting from that, not really moving on, but Joe clearly has some self-confidence issues. He mentions that he comes from a family of doctors and that he needs to continue studying. He needs to just continue doing the best he can, getting the best grades he can. He has to study for these exams and shit. And it's like, you can clearly tell that he's not okay. He has these major self-confidence issues brought upon by this constant stress. And he's so, at his age as a sixth grader, he's so unhealthily obsessed with this that it's almost kind of stealing away his childhood. His entire sense of wonder and whimsy upon coming to the digital world was basically non-existent, because all he had on his mind, all he could think about was studying. But that's kind of his story arc here. He has to open up and learn to accept the whimsical side of this all. He has to learn to accept the more human side of it all. He has to look at it less as something to analyze, something to view as oh, I need to study, I need to prepare, I need to do the best I can. He needs to look at it more as a fun journey. I mean, I'm not saying he shouldn't take it seriously. He definitely should. Like, there is dangerous shit going on here. But all I'm saying is that he needs to chill a little bit. All of these characters have their own little stories going on. All these characters have things that they have to work on. And that's definitely Joe's big thing. So they made it in this episode to the sea, and now they have to cross it to get to the continent on which the Holy Digimon is. So next episode, we're likely going to get to that, and it's going to likely be TK and his partner Digimon Patamon. So I'm interested to see what this interaction is going to be like, because as I said before, TK's introduction is probably going to bring back Matt. And on top of that, this entire thing is probably going to not quite go exactly how they expected to. I'm just curious exactly what they're going to do with this interaction and everything. Um, so yeah, it's going to be interesting. Now we did also see a little bit more of Kari this episode. Um, I'm going to keep calling her Kari. I know in the Japanese she's Hikari, um, but still, we saw a little bit of her in this. And that scene, other than showing that in the real world the power was continuing to have issues, it seemed like the scene didn't have any other use except for showing Kari. Um, she, I think, knows something is going on, like she can sense it, but she doesn't know exactly what it is. Um, so I'm definitely interested. They keep kind of building her up, showing her here and there. So maybe they are going to bring her in quicker than I expected. I don't know. We'll have to see. Um, but yeah, I'm very much excited for more of this. This was not my favorite episode, but as I said in the pre-thoughts, Joe was never my favorite Digidestined. My biggest issue with this episode, I feel, is that Joe's conflict felt like it went by a little too easily. Because the entire thing with Joe in this, obviously, was okay, he's ignoring all of this going on because he needs to study, because he feels he needs to focus and everything, and that's what's important. Um, and while everyone else is trying to figure out the sea and fight the Gozemon, he's like watching them from behind and everything. And when Gomamon gets hurt, he just rushes in and realizes how wrong he was. I did love the part where he took uh, crap, my mind's blanking. He took responsibility for his previous actions and words. Um, when he's saying like he's about to call Gomamon his partner, but he's like, no, I'm your partner. I really did like that because it's like he again he's taking responsibility. He's saying like this is on me. I realize my mistake. Let me help you now. That's what he's saying because Gomon's already helped him out quite a lot, and he realizes that. He recognizes that. But he's saying it's my turn to help you. It's my turn to stand up and do something. And so it's like I really like that. I really it's a subtle thing, such a subtle, just seemingly just simple bit of dialogue. But when you really think about it, it's like that actually means a lot. It actually has a lot of depth to it. Um, but yeah, either way, his I figured he was going to need convincing, but I didn't think it was going to be that easy. I mean, yeah, they're introducing all the Digides and all the Chosen Ones in one episode each. I get that. I get that they have to have a certain limit with that and everything. But still, it just felt like it went by a little too quickly and that he turned around a little too easily. Um, at least for me. Maybe maybe I just I don't know. Maybe I just feel like it might have made more sense if and might have been a little more believable if it was a little more drawn out before he accepted. But I mean I still enjoyed it. I still enjoyed the episode. So we'll have to see what comes next time. In the meantime, tell me what you thought of this episode of Digimon Adventure 2020, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See you all next time.